Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Nice job. Jackson found the beat. We've got what's going on?
What's up? John is back, folks. I told you he was alive. This is no AI creation. This is the real John Zanis. This is no AI.
They thought you retired, John.
And I'm sure they were happy about it.
I don't know if I'd say happy.
Yeah,
yeah,
they finally rid themselves of me. So yeah, no, I'm back, rejuvenated, fresh, New Year's, and all that jazz. And I wanted to be on last night. I had just committed to
that would have
not
been a good
being
one
on.
for you.
No, great game to toss. So much to talk about last night. So I definitely want to empty. I want to, empty the tank a little bit on some of my thoughts from last night as well, because there was a lot. And let's kind of lump these two things together. But I mean, here we are, right? A ho-hum win over the Houston Rockets, a team that, I mean, has played hard, looks good in the standings. I know, unless you're a league pass addict and you're watching all these West Coast games, you're probably not seeing a lot of the Houston Rockets. And if this is your first impression, you'd be like, them? Oh, thank you, Catherine. Thank you. I missed you guys too. I did.
Too many guys out.
Whereas Noah is in Houston. I want to tell you guys that. And yeah, they have guys out. Celtics have Jaylen Brown out. This is kind of where we were last year, right? With the Celtics, hard to judge. Celtics would be down one or two guys. They'd play a team that was down one or two guys, and then they'd drill them. And it was and that's kind of what tonight was. But let's just look at it kind of holistically, right? 2 games here, 2 games back to back, not easy, this gauntlet sort of thing. And it's, again, I'm sure you talked about it a lot last night. Last night was a near perfect game, to win that game. When the other team shoots 50+% from 3 and makes 21 threes was phenomenal. And, they literally almost had to play a perfect game, and they nearly did. Great win. And then tonight, they come out with the same sort of mentality. I mean, they were hitting their shots for sure. Celtics were, but defensively, they had flipped a switch. Again, is it effort? I don't know. Looks like effort to me. Houston also is just a dreadful shooting team, so you can concede some shots there, and it's not really going to matter. But to come out of the gate here, in this kind of gauntlet schedule that they have and go win-win heading into that matchup versus OKC, which is a big one, it would have been easy to kind of not overlook. But this had, trap game, slip up written all over it, and they didn't let it happen.
No, I think that to me is just really the really impressive part about this is these were 2 teams that the way that they're built to give teams like the Celtics problems. Minnesota is a physical, in-your-face type of team. And Ime, that's Ime's DNA to the T. Physical, grimy teams. And those teams are really tough to play anywhere, but particularly when you're playing them on the road. And then to play a team like Houston, the second best defense in the league, on a back-to-back, and to drill them, even with some of their key pieces missing, to still drill them by 23 points, that's an impressive win, the kind of win that reminds us about this Celtics team when they went on a championship run a year ago. They had the ability to step their game up to the caliber of the opponent. And I thought they did that. I mean, Houston, this is going to be a tough out for someone in the Western Conference playoffs. Because of the way they play playoff brand basketball. And for the Celtics to go on the road and drill them and do it without their second best scorer, and their third best player, Porzingis, not really much of an impact player in this game, which is understandable with the layoff. This is a really good win. This was a really, really good win. Maybe one of the better wins they've had this year.
Yeah, considering the circumstances, you thought it would have been a closer, tougher game than it was. I think Houston got rocked by some of the losses they had coming into this one. So
I agree with
not
this.
super indicative of who they are, but the Celtics had guys step up left and right. With Brown out, Holiday continues to look great. White's back to his near all-star form. Tatum, even, I feel like, continues to be super consistent, even though this was pretty, far below what we saw from him last night. Just a good steady hand at the top of the offense. And John, we talked a lot last night about how he just needs the ball more. He just needs to do more. He needs to be the guy who's in control for this team, shooting more shots, just doing more stuff. Because when they've allowed him to do that this year, they've been unstoppable for the most part, and he's risen his level. And you still want to have other guys involved and still have different
Wait,
looks.
who?
But Tatum.
Tatum.
When
Yeah.
given him more usage this year, they've rarely lost. And when he's taken, guys have had to run the show. It's been more inconsistent.
Yeah, I thought last night was a near perfect Tatum game. And I thought tonight was trending in that direction just because he was making all the right decisions again. Everything he was doing was right. He's just in control. He's taking advantage of mismatches the right way. I think old Tatum used to frustrate me because it was always he'd get a mismatch and he would just clearly set them up for a step back only. And that drove me insane. And then just watching him, just spin, trying to create Gobert memes and just spin them in circles and take it to the hole and then take advantage of whatever it is that the defense has given him is great. One of my favorite plays from last night was that double team where he drills that bounce pass to Keita, who was, that to me is and I know we're doing a Rockets post-game show, but going back to last night, that to me, if you screen capped that shot of Tatum bounce passing it to Keita, who was all alone under the basket after Tatum had been doubled, and the other three remaining defenders had to be corner, elbow, corner on all of the shooters because that's what you have to do against the Celtics. And to see the whole middle of the paint open and Tatum just fire that bounce pass to Keita, who turned around and it was like, nobody's here, huh? Ka-junk, and slammed it. Was just beautiful. And so, yeah, that's the kind of stuff you get when Tatum's doing what he's doing and making the reads, and you have to respect the shooters. It really becomes a pick your poison sort of thing. And if the Celtics play that way, it's really, really hard to stop them. Certainly, when they're shooting the ball as well as they shot it tonight from three, exceedingly difficult to stop.
Yeah,
them
he had a similar pass to Cornet at the start of tonight's game as well. So
yeah.
Good playmaking. I'm not looking against a team like the Rockets who are trying to muck it up. They fouled and they were going to come into this game and foul a ton and shove guys and screens and just try to muck this game up. I don't worry about the turnovers as much out of this one. I don't worry about the numbers and the efficiencies and all that. You put up a commensurate number of points here and you strangled out their offense. And there were games, a week or two ago that you lost that I feel like you could have done that if your defense was playing at a acceptable level. And I think we're seeing that come around here too. Again, big picture, the last 2-3 games here, I think you're seeing their defense come back to life. Drew's, 3 games, 3 wins back, a big part of that. And he looks fantastic from the opening minutes of this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this isn't, and that's the thing is like, I want to address this because I agree. Tatum's not the story tonight. Tatum didn't have an awesome game. He just looked, again, just seemed to be in control of everything.
Though, when the Rockets pulled close.
Yeah. Yeah. He gave them everything they needed. He had those 2 big threes. He had a great drive and a dunk there. And he absolutely needed it. I mean, we always talk about Tatum giving the game what it needs. I felt that was that. And then, the best thing, there's 3 great things about tonight's game. And we'll talk a little bit about each one of them. Number 1, I know we'll sit here and assess Porzingis' play. It's his first game back after missing. Was it 3 or 4 with the ankle? 4. Misses 4 with the ankle. I mean, you can't love what you're getting out of Porzingis since he's returned from injury, but every time he injures himself and it's not a serious injury and he comes back after a couple of games, I feel a little bit better. I do.
That's good.
Because it's like, okay, that's normal stuff. It's not like weird shit or stuff that's constantly happening. These are bad luck injuries, rolled ankles and stuff like that. It's not like injury prone guys with their soft tissue shit that's happening left and right. And you're like, here we friggin' go again, hamstrings and calves and blah, blah, blah. It's not a Luka situation where he's going to miss 6 weeks, 8 weeks with a calf. So that's fine. If it's just goofy tall guy injuries he's suffering right now, I can live with that versus oh my God, it's the knees, it's the joints, it's the ankles, it's the tendons, all of those things. So that's okay. He's not playing great. And I think I do want to ask the question of you guys, later on in the show, if we're recalibrating our expectations of what we're getting from Porzingis, not just in terms of availability, but in terms of ability. But the thing that I think pops tonight is Derek White has these games all the time. And we've seen it from him. And when he does, it's great. And he looked like the best player on the floor for much of tonight's game. But I do think, and somebody put it in the chat earlier, the entire chat owes Drew Holiday an apology, Cam. And Bobby, this is something I'm not going to be able to do over the next couple of years. I'm not going to be able to bury and then resurrect Drew Holiday every time he goes through a little dip in his play, because people are so quick to do that. Every time he hits a little dip or a little stretch, it's this contract's going to bury them. We're already seeing the decline. We've got a Holiday problem. I don't think they have a Drew Holiday problem. And again, he's played better since coming back from that shoulder. So again, things bother you. That affects a lot of what you're able to do. He wasn't shooting it as well. He's shot terrific since he's come back here, from that injury. And he just looks a lot more like the version of Drew Holiday we're used to seeing.
Yeah.
I had some concerns given the way he played, because you need this version of him, it looks like, at least on the defensive end. And everything he gives you offensively, such a bonus. And you go through the layers, offensive rebounding, they miss that. The secondary shooting and playmaking, you miss that a ton. And the playmaking especially, like when he gets the ball, good stuff happens. Especially off of an offensive rebound, able to kick it out to some other guys in those spots. The post-ups, I mean, you went to that early in this game, and it was a huge weapon for you, especially where the Rockets were kind of pushing Porzingis out. So that's before you even mentioned the defensive stuff. And I wrote a big story about it last night, John. What they did to Minnesota, utilizing him, and him being out there quarterbacking zones and different looks and switches and changing matchups. He was on Gobert for parts of that game. It's the ultimate luxury in this league. And it's what I think tilted them over that edge of being unstoppable last year. And now that you're seeing him back to that player that we saw a year ago, they suddenly look unstoppable again here over the last 3 games. You beat Toronto by 56. You get rolled by the Wolves with an impressive performance. And you make the Rockets look super average in this one. Again, the Rockets are better than what we thought of it.
Healthy snacks in the new year. Yes, I'm eating Clement.
Absolutely. The thing about Drew Holiday that I think often gets overlooked is just how his mere presence, and I've been saying this all season, his presence makes everything and everyone around this Celtics team better. He's one of those guys that his numbers are never going to reflect his true impact. When you talk about the Celtics and their play defensively, he doesn't have to get a bunch of steals and block shots and force turnovers to put his imprint on the game. His ability to make the jobs of everyone around him easier at the defensive end of the floor is such a huge factor and benefit to the Celtics team. I don't think it's a coincidence that, one of his first games back, Derek White has 3-4 blocks. And that's because Derek White can be a great defender and great help side defender, because he doesn't have to pick up the slack that exists when you don't have Drew Holiday.
The block on Brooks is my favorite play of the game. Just because it was an incredibly athletic,
for a guy who's not known to be very athletic.
That's what's amazing is there's more to athleticism than just simply, measured vertical leap or straight line speed. It's just the time. His timing is impeccable in terms of what he does. I've never seen anybody with such time to not have that much of a vertical and to be able to time his jump. So he's always catching you at his peak, and he's always getting it where it needs to go right before you release it. He's at the peak of his jump every time. And to do it when you're running with a guy going across the basket and turning your body to do that is unbelievably athletic body control and timing that is more than just, like we said, straight vertical or all of the measurables that you would get that you would get at a combine. He's a very athletic guy. And plus it's Brooks and F him. You could see him too. That freaking guy, he's trying to pick up Tatum full court because he knew that Tatum was kind of running the offense sometimes, and he's giving him a little of this and that. It's like, they were
giving little shoves all night.
I love
Grow
when
up.
I love when he was banging Porzingis on a block. I'm like, dude, seriously? How about banging Kada? Let's see how that. I want to see that.
So that was a good move here. So early in this, it wasn't a game for long, but the opportunity the Rockets had was tagging Porzingis with those 2 quick fouls,
Right.
Şengün going at him a little bit, having some success early, and then Joe went right to the Porzingis Kada double big look there, and that I thought swung the game in the Celtics direction big time. This wasn't as good of a Kada game as last night, but the double big looks were good.
No. Last night was the best game of his professional career. Is this a new chat person? We do have Mrs. Toscano, homeschool teacher, watching the show now. That's amazing.
Could be a new name.
That's good. Of course, Bobby. It's still funny.
I saw
Good.
Jimmy tonight, by the way. Saw Jimmy in action. I went and listened
you
to a
did?
few of the tunes and grabbed the burger. Yeah.
Did you throw a couple bucks in his guitar case? Poor starving Jimmy.
No.
Yes.
Throw some of that Prize Picks money in there.
I threw him some rounds of applause.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, you think so, Jude? I don't know. They're panickers. What's funny? Everyone used to think I panicked. Now I'm so I'm so chill when it comes to these guys.
Here's the thing again, and I know guys were down, and that I think had a bigger impact looking back on it than we gave credit to. And of course, when you're missing Holiday and Porzingis for that stretch, you're gonna feel it. But they weren't playing well, and why can't we just leave it at that? They didn't play good for 3-4 games. They turned it around. They focused, they locked back in, and look at all the stuff they're doing again. And Holiday's making a big difference here, certainly, but their offensive rebounding, they're cutting down the turnovers. They're shooting well again. I think they're producing better quality shots. Everybody's just a bit more locked in, dialed in, it feels like, over these last handful of games here. And no one was panicking about that handful of games there, but the defense was really bad. They were giving the ball away. They were shooting horribly. So what do you want us to do when they play like that?
Go ahead. Here's the thing about this team is that I think we have to embrace the fact that this team is playing with house money all season long because they've already won a championship. They brought damn near everyone back from that team. So if they fall short, it's like, well, I guess we didn't win another championship versus, oh man, we sure blew our chance to win a title. And because of that, they have a different end goal than most teams do. They're focused on what's at the end of the finish line. They don't care as much about the journey as a lot of these other teams do because a lot of other teams understand that in order to be the last team standing, we've got to go through this process. The Celtics have been there, done that. So for them, they're not getting freaked out about losing 3 or 4 games because they know at the end of the road, the prize that they truly covet is still theirs for the taking, and they know they can do it because they have literally done it already. That's why Jrue Holiday, when we point out that Jrue Holiday is not playing well, we're not pointing out that he's done. It's a wrap. It's the fact that he's not playing well in this moment. But
it's something that could be different from last year.
Well, the difference, Bobby, is that so many guys on this team are in different roles than they had a year ago. Peyton Pritchard last year versus Peyton Pritchard this year, very different. Porzingis, who was kind of the cheat code last year. Now we're not really sure exactly what his role is going to be come playoff time because things are different with him. You know, before it was like you were afraid that he would.
This year, I feel
they do. I thought, frankly, they got very, very lucky to not need him as much as they did last season when a championship. Yeah. I don't think that lightning can strike twice in that regard.
It was the timing. We talked about it. He was there all year. And then come playoff time, he goes down and you can play Horford 40 minutes to make up for it. You can't do that during the regular season here where Horford's sitting some nights where Porzingis goes down. So that's
and then there's Hauser with the back. And so there's so many more health-related issues that they're dealing with this year that they did not have to manage last season. And it's changed things a little bit.
Yeah. Shout out Big Kess. Always good to see him on the show.
Big Kess.
Friggin' love it. Yeah, I'll give you the non-vegan brownie. That taste test is still coming for sure.
By the way, Hauser coming into this one 50% over the last 3 games or so, and in this one, one shot, 19 minutes, didn't start the third
You know what
quarter.
I don't like? That Hauser has his own special back thing with his own initials on it. Like
He has his initials on it.
Yeah, it's embroidered. Like,
but John, you know why? They got
Yeah.
so many damn guys that have back issues. Everyone has to have their own individualized back support.
Yeah,
I know.
That's
Now
when you got
Jalen's
too many
hurt.
damn guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone,
they
and
can't
that's
avoid the bumps and
so
bruises.
I agree, Bobby. I agree mainly with your point, and I actually think that that's the biggest takeaway from tonight and these last two games is, and here's the thing: you and I will get a little bit bent out of shape over it, like the Missoula stuff, because I mean I personally find it like insulting. And you're in there and you're trying to do a job and it's frustrating. It doesn't matter to fans, so I'm never going to make a big deal about the Missoula stuff, but it really is oftentimes, and I tweeted this the other day, because this, let's just the Joe Missoula comment on, Noah's question, and Noah said many profound things. This isn't by any means a knock on Noah, but the whole idea of effort versus slump, you're slumping on offense, but it's effort on defense. And, Joe was like, bingo, exactly. And I'm sorry. I just don't think that's true. Effort is effort. You can see it watching your kids. You can see it watching anything. It's certainly very clear when a team is going for it or when a team is on cruise control. The Celtics spent a lot of the first couple months of the year on cruise control. Shitty opponents, knew that they were going to win some games, weren't committed on the defensive end of things. It's kind of plain to see. And so it really does take a choice to ratchet it up a little bit. And when that happens, you see good things happen. But you could be lazy on offense too, settling for threes versus working for them and getting your paint touches. You see it on both ends. And I do think it's not just, the shots fell, so everything is fixed. It's the process. Joe's such a process guy. It's so weird that he ignores the process when it's not going when they're not following it. But Sherrod, you got a thought?
Well, no, I mean, just the whole effort discourse. When you look at the way that they just absolutely annihilated teams and the way they went about doing it, it was effort. They were simply outworking teams combined with the fact that they were more talented than them. And what do you have? 30, 40, 50-point beatdowns. Now they have more of those moments where that effort is not at an elite level. And the thing that I think they're gradually understanding and embracing is the fact that every team they play is going to give them that team's greatest effort of the season, because the Celtics have become the standard that everyone measures themselves against. And so when you're measuring yourself against the standard, you want to make damn sure you put your best face forward. And I don't think the Celtics have been as consistent in meeting or exceeding that effort that they're getting hit with as we saw a year ago. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that they're defending champions. And part of that, again, is that they understand that the end goal is to win a championship. And because they've already done it, they have I think that they're kind of pacing themselves a little bit more so than they did last year when they really didn't know how hard they needed to go to win a championship. Now they have a feeling, they have a sense of what that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the frustration is that he's not telling us what's real. Yeah, I think he's trying to spin.
But I also don't care. I also don't care. It's just frustrating because we're trying to have conversations and being told that they're the wrong conversations.
Right.
Which it's
more
not,
often than not, John. I think
and
they're having
it's
those
insulting to.
conversations.
They are behind the scenes. He's just messing with the media because he wants to, because he views Q&As like combat. But it's to the fans who are watching at home, it's also kind of the same. Like, come on, man, you guys dogged it tonight. Like fans can see it too. This untrained eye thing I think is hilarious. Like some of the fans have gotten
the Indiana
so
game. I mean,
fans
if you want to pick any of them,
smart and how they watch basketball and how they analyze it. It's unbelievable how much people know who are watching these games relative to, past generations. They're really educated, but they can certainly tell when you're friggin' laying down a little, here and not going through the process and just chucking threes. It's not Charles Barkley. Like, well, it's just too many threes. Like sometimes they go through sometimes they go through their paces and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a slump. It's an effort. It's a choice. It's a choice. They know it. But like we give them, that's the point, is we give them passes on it. Like you're the champs. it's an 82 game season. You can't get up for Detroit on a Wednesday, on a back-to-back all the time. Like, you are trying to win some of these games with 70, 80% effort, and every once in a while you'll get burned. That's all. You just don't want it to
What
become
was
a habit.
concerning, John, is they laid down on Christmas to some degree. And again, you look at that game, the Caleb Martin stuff. I don't have a huge problem with that. The Magic thing, Tatum goes down minutes before the game starts. All right. The Indiana one was really bad. I mean, that was a layup line. That was a game that even had Joe at the podium after Sherrod saying that, the defense just isn't where it needs to be.
That guy
right
threw
now.
two shoes at that guy threw 2 shoes at W, by the way. He ducked them both.
Bob and weave.
It's pretty good. But again, it doesn't matter. It's just nice to see them. I don't care. It's nice to see them buckle down. And when they do, you're like, so was that better, Joe? Yeah, this is better. These 2 games, definitely a little bit of purpose. And it's good because you would much rather them play up to their competition and down to it. Right. Come playoff time, there's no one to play down to. So you want to see them man up. I would feel a lot worse if they were beating up the bottom feeders in every game against a good team. They weren't able to hang or they were losing. That's not
the opposite with them to some degree.
It's
right?
the opposite here, which is good. It's the opposite. It's the opposite.
Yeah, no, you don't have any worries about them going up against some of the top dogs in the league. And we'll get to Sunday in a little bit, which I do think is a little different. I'm not going to go too far on that, but I think what the Thunder are doing right now is kind of ridiculous. So they might be on your level where everyone else, when you get their best shot and you give your best shot, you're going to come out on top like the Celtics did last night. So I think that's where they're at. I think if they're healthy, we're going to have a whole different conversation here about what their potential is. But Sherrod, like you said, it's a different year. They might not be healthy this year, and it might be more prohibitive to them going all the way if they have to do it with some percentage of the roster available. And it's been everybody going in and out.
I've been baking pies. I've only been baking pies for 3 or 4 years. I've been doing the media thing for like 25. So I've wasted my life, Sherrod. I've wasted it.
Clearly. Oh God, I love our people, man. I freaking love them. They're the best.
I love them. I love them. And I love
John.
And honestly, Bobby, I love Joe, and I love that he gives you shit. It's just funny that in some cases you do see like a little bit more purpose, a little effort, a little focus too. Like the 2 stats that I think jump out, and things got sloppy a little bit in the third. What was it? The 5 turnovers last night. Is that what it was overall?
Yep,
and then the
really
one turnover through the half. That's locked in, right? Like that's attention to detail. That's care. That's not wasting possessions. That's making smart passes, smart reads. It's not over dribbling. It's not trying to do too much. It's working the ball, trusting the process. That's those are my favorite stats from the last couple of nights is how, because again, last night it was necessary. They had to play a near perfect game to win that with the other team shooting as well as they did. But yeah, again, through the first half tonight, 1 turnover. I mean, the third quarter was sloppy, but Houston couldn't shoot worth a lick, and they actually extended the lead, which was good. And then amazingly, you extend the non-Tatum when it's to Stove to start the fourth quarter. He almost didn't even need to come back. To come back in. Yeah. Which was great.
And we're throwing around a lot of words here. Like, what did this whole thing start with? It was Gary saying motivation. I understand Joe having an issue with motivation because what is it? They're lazy. They don't care. They're not trying like that. I think has a different connotation maybe than
he's got their back. He's got their back. He's got
attention to detail. That whole thing. And
he's never gonna say anything like that. Yeah.
No, nothing negative. And even when you go down the effort or I think he's willing to give attention to detail.
But
maybe
I bet he drills them behind the scenes.
Possessions. Yeah, I'd say so. And
yeah.
And listen, I think we're all talking about the same thing here, right?
Even Belichick wouldn't do it. Belichick would give you nothing. He wouldn't flip the script on it, but he'd give you next to nothing on what actually happened. Well, we'll look at the film and we'll go in there. But we know in the meetings, he'd be like, play the tape and just signal guys out and be like, what the F are you doing here? So Joe's a teacher. There's no question he's going back in there and he's going over all of it. Like, what did we do here? What did we do here? What's going on here? So that's just it's media driven stuff, but it is nice
I
to
think
see
we're
them flip it.
I think we're
it,
all
you
talking
know?
about the same stuff here. Now,
Yeah.
in his words, I know you don't like the, what is it, 10 to 15 possessions or whatever, 8 to 10, you go wrong and we're going to fix those. I thought one possession blew it against Philly, and that can be all the difference in the world. Last night was a game where one possession swings the game, and they actually made, I thought, a mistake. I don't know if they got the foul off on the last shot there, John, trying to intentionally foul Edwards, but that's a mistake there, letting him get a free look at the rim. But what I loved about last night, and just like you, John, I want to still talk about last night more than this game, the totality of the game plan. I don't care they gave up 115, 53% three-point shooting, whatever the numbers were, because the numbers said, right, it was one of their worst defensive games, if not their worst defensive game of the year. But they're switching guys out of matchups back line. They're going to zone looks. They're holding up in isolation. Hauser's defending Edwards. They're keeping the ball out of Edwards' hands. Like, there was so much to that game defensively that was high level, and not just, guard your yard. That's your responsibility. Remember,
It was high
Jalen
level.
said,
You know what?
and let me just finish, Rod.
Mhm.
Jalen said after that Indiana game, which again was such a disgrace. It was a really bad moment in this season, and I don't know how you can paint it as anything different. But he said coming out of that game, we should have helped much more in this game than we did. The Pacers only shot 27 threes. We could have helped on maybe like 10 to 12 more possessions there. And that's what it looked like going back and looking at that game. And against Minnesota, all you did was help. And did you give up a lot of threes? Yes. But you shook Edwards just enough that at the end of the game, he was missing layups, missing a good look from three, and missing the decisive three in that game. And I just thought it was a really good game plan, high level stuff, attention to detail, everybody knowing their job all the way down the line. So it wasn't good a week or two ago. It got better. I don't know why that can't just be the story here.
Well, Bobby, the last few games, if we're being really honest and transparent about it, this is what you do in the playoffs. These are game plans that you would be executing in the postseason if you are one of the teams that's supposed to be among the last team standing. When you play a team like Minnesota, you figure out different ways to throw them off, to get them out of sync, to keep them from not getting into any kind of rhythm. The fact that Anthony Edwards, who's a phenomenal scorer, I think he had, 14, 15 points and took 16 shots or something like that.
15,
That's exactly what you want to see happen. When you look at the way that they were able to take advantage of the fact that Houston does not shoot the ball well. And they did a lot of, I thought, a good job of help side defense and all those little things that when you get into a best of 7 series, you have to do in order to keep that advantage, to keep that edge, not only in terms of that particular game, but in terms of the series as a whole. They're playing as close to we've seen playoff caliber basketball these last 2 or 3 games.
Yeah.
Not so much in terms of like numbers and things like that, but just the focus, I'm going to say it, the effort.
Well, they
right there.
They got up in Houston's shit today for sure, particularly that second half. Houston looked flustered. It was that they were bothering them. And I think Joe had talked about it recently, just about emphasis on defense of like not just playing defense and kind of following guys around and sticking with them, but like hassling them, trying to create, cause mistakes, create turnovers, which you've seen a little uptick in it, which is good because you have to do that. You got to be a little bit disruptive there. It's not just all about just chasing guys around. You want to get them to mess up, and they flustered Houston a lot tonight. I mean, they're not a great shooting team, but I felt like they had to take some of those shots because there was nothing else available to them, all night. And that's the Celtics kind of willed them to do what they wanted them to do most of the night, certainly the second half.
That pesky defense, Sean, that you're talking about was a perfect sequel to what we saw last night. That Anthony Edwards postgame interview, oh my gosh. I mean, I did not realize how rent-free,
John.
Yeah, I did not realize the level of rent-free living the Celtics had in Anthony Edwards' head in that damn game. I mean, to hear him talk about, what was problematic for him against the Celtics, I mean, it was so blatantly obvious and clear that they were in his head that entire entire game, and he could
Well-
not do anything to shake that. And this is one of the best players in the game right now, talking very candidly about his just struggles to find a way to deal with this Celtics team that just absolutely, again, lived rent-free in his head for the entire game.
Yeah, and we'll play that. We'll play that, and we'll talk about it in a little bit because I did have some thoughts. You know, I'll tell you my thoughts, but I don't want to spill it all now because it's not as over the top as you think. But yeah, they did get in his head. I'm not. I'll tell you in a minute.
Just admit it,
but-
John. Imagine if Jason Tatum said that.
No
in
question
2021.
about it. Oh my God.
Filleted, grilled, barbecued, you name
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
First off, let's tell you about our terrific sponsor here at the Garden Report, and that, of course, is Prize Picks, the best place to get real money sports action. Over 10 million members, billions of dollars awarded in winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Pick more or less, at least 2 players. Shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long with Prize Picks. And again, for you NFL fans, it's a fun time of year because it's playoffs approaching. Week 17, a bit of a slop fest, but you can get really creative here too, and maybe sneak out some good ones. I might take the more on Joe Milton. I'll tell you that right now. If that's being if that's being offered, that I'm feeling a Joe Milton game, but we'll see about that. As we said, you can see it here on the screen, but all you have to do is sign up today. You get 50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers terrific weekly promotions, can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discount select player projections up to 25%, provide even more value for your lineups. There's free squares that basically is just a gimme, and it just makes it that much easier to cash in. So as we said, download that app today. Use the code CLNS. Get 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app. Use the code CLNS to get 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game, Bobby. So I'll get back to the Ant stuff because it was interesting. Oh, we don't have the bite yet. We'll get it. We'll get the Ant bite, and we'll talk about that as well because you're right. Jason Tatum says something like that. And Tatum's done his share of kind of woe is me sort of stuff there, talking about this and that. Never to that extent before. And I truly don't know that he knew fully what he was saying. I think he was trying to be candid and open and honest, and that's his style, and that's going to burn you sometimes, and that's why I have some sympathy for it, because in the media, you're always asking for people to be truthful. And that's what he was trying to do, is trying to kind of give you his take. I just think it sounded a good bit worse than it was. I don't think, and I don't believe Anthony Edwards is out there thinking, I'm all about scoring and not about this other ancillary bullshit that might lead to victories and winning. I don't think that's what he thinks at all. I think he's a guy who likes to be the guy. And they took it from him, and they tried really hard to frustrate him and to make him, do that. And it's just a part of his game that it hasn't really learned yet. Relative to Tatum, Tatum's been in the league longer. Tatum is older.
Right.
And it's different for him. We'll play the Ant bite and then we'll react to it because I know you talked about it last night, because it is really interesting, especially as it pertains to, the Tatum comparisons. Because right now, American-born basketball players, it's these two guys, right? For who's the face of the league. Everyone else is foreign-born.
Yeah, just
right?
sneaking around, but still too many issues, including health.
It's really these two guys right now who are kind of vying for like the top American player. And
Brunson,
Tatum's
Towns doing their thing a little bit in New York.
Not there yet. Anyway, let's hear the Edwards bite.
5 assists and you guys scored 34 points. Is that kind of the way forward for this right now? Like to just get up as much as possible? And
hell no. I mean, well, I'm sorry. Is that a cussing word?
No. You can say hell.
I don't know, man. That was a good brand of basketball, but it's not how I want to play, of course. I mean, I'm only 23. I don't want to just be passing the ball all night. You feel me?
you don't want to be Mike Conley.
Yeah, at all. But the way that they guarded me, I think I have to. So
I was gonna say, how hard is it to just stay engaged?
super hard,
Yeah.
super hard, super hard,
Super hard,
I mean, because
super
I'm
hard.
wired to score the ball.
Do you think that's what teams are trying to do to you, like mentally trying to take you out of a game?
I don't know.
By
I
placing
don't.
you like that.
I mean, that might be a part of it, but I know they're just doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know if like their plan is like let's mentally take them out, but because it don't like take me all the way out the game, but it definitely frustrates me a little bit. But them doubling me definitely is like, bro, what is going on? Like, so yeah, I be trying to figure it out, man.
So is it something where you have to just try to get the ball back after you give it up, or how do you?
Yeah, but then I don't want to make it seem like I'm like chasing the ball every time, you know.
Right.
But then when I get double and give it up, and then go to the corner and make it seem like I'm just like, all right, boom, the double team won. So like I don't know what to do, honestly. But it's not fun, of course, you know, because I don't want to look like I'm not trying or not as good as I am, you know, because I am, but I can't show it because I'm getting double teamed. You know,
Is it a pride thing when you see SGA do what he did?
So I'm gonna cut it there. So
I'm
like I said,
wired.
I could look at it a couple of different ways.
Please,
So this
John.
is my general take on it. It's easy to cook him for it, and I know that's what most people are doing. And it does show immaturity because it's not about thinking it; it's about saying it and what you should and shouldn't say. And sometimes it's just better, you know. But I get it from a perspective of like he's a race car and he doesn't want to be parked in a garage, and he's thinking I can go, and this isn't the natural state of me, and it kind of stinks. But what's also funny is low key, it's also a dig at some of the things that everybody doesn't like about the NBA right now, which is stars passing out of doubles because people are over helping to open shooters who are knocking down shots and who aren't necessarily the stars. So you can't watch the stars shine and cook. And he's thinking like, you came here to watch Anthony Edwards be Anthony Edwards. You did not come here to watch Anthony Edwards because Jason Tatum took the bullet in the finals and got massacred for his inability to take over games, and he couldn't score. And that you're hearing
Twice.
that, right?
Yeah,
Twice.
Eastern Conference Finals and the Finals.
So you're hearing that. And that was what necessary. It was, in fact, the tactic. He was almost deployed as the decoy, which is great. Give it to Jason. They'll double him. He'll pass out of it, or let him drive with no chance of scoring, but it's going to draw defenders, and we're going to drive and kick all friggin' day long. And that's what they did, and they won a chip. And that's it. But I totally understand.
It is interesting how it parallels.
I totally understand the mentality, and it does parallel. He's years away from it, but the sentiment is correct in the sense that, like, I can do so many things beyond that. It's kind of a bummer being reduced to just that. I want to be out here and I want to flow, you know, so I get it. And I'm not killing him for that.
Right.
It sounded so bad, but it does also show
like he's not willing to do it.
Right.
It looks like he's not, but I don't think that's the case. But it does show how far he has to go to get to where Tatum is right now and how long it took Tatum to get there. And that's what I find interesting is everyone wanted to say that Tatum was that guy for a long time before he was that guy. There were flashes of him being that guy, but it wasn't there yet. Again, he's averaging 4. It's not all about assist numbers, but a guy with the ball in his hands as much as he has it, his assist numbers should consistently be up over 6, and they were always around 4. He was still looking for, how can I beat this double and score? How can I step back and score over these guys? Too often and not enough was he saying, I'll just become a facilitator and I'll just do that until you stop doubling me.
The guys.
And he didn't have the guys in the earlier part of his career. And it's an evolution, but it took him this long to the point that, like, he's playing the best basketball of his life right now because he's doing this more willingly and in a way that's like not hurting him at all. I think that was what we always said about Tatum is when he realizes that you can get rid of the ball and you'll get it back. Like sometimes make everybody around you better. It's going to make life easier for you because people will have to stop doubling you on every single possession because you're going to burn them. Look what LeBron does to people. Look what Jokic does to people. When you do that, you're picking death. You can only do that when there aren't shooters all over the floor. When there are, it's a problem. And, and it took Tatum a long time to get there, and Ant's nowhere near there. He's nowhere near there.
There's a level of trust involved with that players.
But
that
I didn't
are built
hate it.
Right.
I didn't hate it as much as everyone else did, and I didn't think it was ridiculous.
No, but it speaks to the fact that, there's a level of trust that players who are wired like Tatum and wired like Anthony Edwards, there's a level of trust they have to get to that is not a guarantee they're going to get there. And it's certainly damn sure not guaranteed to happen quickly. It has to happen over time. And Tatum, it took him a while to realize that the guys around me, there's a reason why they're in the NBA. They're pretty damn good players, and their ability to take advantage of opportunities that I can create for them is in turn going to create opportunities for me. It's the boomerang theory. What I'm going to put out there, opportunities are going to come back to me. And Anthony Edwards, he's not at that point yet, which again, it really shouldn't come as that big a shock when you consider he's only 23 years old, which he did mention there. But Tatum, to me, is the blueprint for how a great player can become a great superstar winning player. Because the numbers are always going to be there for Anthony Edwards. But until he gets to that point where he trusts the guys around him enough to make plays and trust them enough to make plays and get him the ball back and put him in better position to make plays later on throughout the course of the game, that's the level that he's not at yet that he needs to get to if he's going to be, one of the faces of the league. And a winner. That's really right. That's the big thing. Go ahead, Bobby.
There's some similarities that make it interesting comparing him to Tatum, but I do actually think his game's more like Jalen's, where Jalen's able to play that way, right? Head on, attacking, aggressive, live with some mistakes, doesn't have the total playmaking burden. And that's more of what Edwards could do with Towns there. And it's more awkward with Randall. I think you can see that.
Oh,
it's my turn, your turn. That's impacting him. And I don't know how that's going to help his development here, but
it's like a basketball arranged. Yeah, it's like a basketball arranged marriage. They're married, but are they really? Do they really like each other?
Are they going to be together for the long term? Yeah. All that, yeah. So
weird trade.
It's tough, and with Tatum, back to him. 2020, he has that breakout similar to Edwards last year. 2021, the scrutiny increases, less consistent. Obviously, a lackluster team around him, but not a super willing passer, not a polished playmaker. And then even into 2022, he broke the turnover record for the playoffs into that postseason, and the Warriors made him a passer. So he's had to, through failure after failure, learn that if you make the pass and you maybe sacrifice a little bit of your own stats and allure and responsibility, it can lead to more winning. And Edwards, I don't know what's going to happen there around him. Like, that obviously is a big part of it. The Celtics just built a roster that continue to get more and more suited to helping Tatum win. Minnesota seems like they're going in the opposite direction, which is going to be a challenge.
That trade hurts him in terms of his ability to develop, because he's kind of back where Tatum was.
But they're still good enough to be way better than they've been this year.
Totally.
They have not shown well.
I think they'll figure some stuff out along the way, but it was interesting. And we scrutinized Tatum a teeny bit more, and Ant gets, and it's fair. People are like, wow, you would have killed Tatum over this. Yeah. Part of it is just superficial stuff too. Ant, he's charming. He's, he's kind of like, he's got this smile. He's honest.
Tatum probably looked at it the same way and just didn't say it.
Ebullient, like that's just who he is. Like, and Tatum was a little mopey, sulky, and I think he gets hurt for that. He gets dinged a little bit for that stuff, the complaining, and it's not fair. It's a perception issue more than anything else. But Bobby, I said it last year, right? When we were talking about, we had the Ant versus Tatum conversation, and man, Ant can do no wrong. And if Tatum did that, he'd be killed. And I said, the shine's going to come off him a little bit, because the expectation level is going to rise, and that stuff and the candid stuff and the cutesy stuff, that's not going to be cute anymore, especially if they're not doing well or if he's not elevating his game or answering the bell or they're winning. And that was a little bit of a taste of it. That's where that stuff can kind of come back and burn you. But ultimately, my final thing is this was more a matter of needing media coaching than it was anything about his true feelings about what he needs to do to win and to be a team player. Really what he's got to say is, yeah, it's frustrating, but keep bringing it. You double me and I'll friggin' find other ways to kill you. You say something like that and it's great. But he was frustrated. He's frustrated. He missed the last shot. Frustrated he couldn't come through. There are some people out there who just believe that that's what they do, right? This was kind of Tatum's problem also. I'm a scorer. I help the team by scoring. And so when he was struggling, he would try harder to score. And sometimes that would hurt him. And I mean, it hurt him. He's still statistically.
A lot of guys go through this.
A lot of guys go through it. I mean, it's really nitpicky with Tatum. He statistically had like 6 straight ridiculous years. But just in terms of trying to become that perfect player or the top 3 player or top 5 player, that was always the thing that kind of kept him back in that quest. And that's what we're judging Ant by has Ant taken the leap into that next stratosphere of like knocking on the door of the top 5 throwers.
He might not even be on NBA this year. Maybe third.
Yeah.
So
but
it's a step back
what
for
these
sure.
guys,
How many guys have we said it with, Sherrod?
Is I do this, I win by scoring.
What's that, Bobby?
I was just going to say that. These guys grow up solving all their problems by shooting and scoring. And so you come into the league at 19, not too far removed from that, if at all, and your development starts in this league. And that's the challenge for so many of these guys is that you're that AAU version of yourself on day one in this league. And when the franchise gets thrust and it becomes your responsibility thrust on you, it's a challenge for a guy like Edwards. And the benefit Tatum had, still looking back on it, you had Kyrie as a buffer, you had Kemba as a buffer. And so there were 3-4 years of winning there where he got to learn, he got to not have that pressure, and he got to hone his game to be in a good place. He was in another world physically by the time he took over the franchise. And he still had to go through it all those years later. And the only way you can get through it is by doing it. And what are we talking about? Difference between Edwards and Tatum in age, like 3-4 years?
23 to 27, right?
Yeah. 23, 26, something like that. 27. Yeah.
So it's a world of difference. We're talking about Edwards.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm
sorry.
Right
Tatum turns 26 later this year, but I mean 27 later this year. So he's still 26. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, but I didn't think it was. I did not think it was representative of his feelings about not wanting to be a team player. I think it's more like I can do so many things, and just being reduced to this guy who's just kind of getting it takes you out. I mean, Jesus, every good NFL wide receiver feels this way. Like I want to cook, and when they get doubled, what happens? You pass other guys. It's just how it works. It's pretty normal.
Ime talked about a little bit before the game too, like what they went through that year and them just not being ready. And I think it's this stuff. Like this is why they weren't ready in 2022. This is why they lost, despite probably having more talent.
Nick paying $10 for this when he texts me and asks me this question like 7 times a day. It doesn't make any sense.
Meanwhile, the ratings are up over the last handful of weeks here. They're like back.
Don't
to
do this, Bobby. Don't do it, Bobby.
Oh, Bobby fell down a war. He got him, John. He got him.
Yeah. Don't do it.
We got really bored there for a week talking about that in the threes.
But he's here and he's gonna come at you in the chat. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, Bobby, you gotta watch it. Gotta watch what you say.
By the way, that game last night was the best game of the season, quality-wise.
It's awesome. Great basketball. Well, you know what I'm going to go in on? I'm going to go in on the broadcast.
Halftime show.
All of it. I'm going in on all of it in a minute.
Brutal.
It's going to be boomer on boomer crime when it is, because I've had it. I've absolutely had it. Straight up boomer on boomer crime coming up in terms of how that game was talked about, both on the broadcast
that was really bad,
and the halftime. and the halftime report. Oh my goodness, was it bad? First off, though, we do have to tell you a little bit about one more of our sponsors, and that, of course, is Game Time. And by the way, we're still going to talk Jimmy Butler because that's wildly interesting for a couple of different reasons. But
what
Celtics
a
are on the
story
road.
today.
That's fine. You want to score some last-minute tickets to games. Game Time is the place for you. You want to go check out the Pats? Oh boy, can you get an easy? I'll pull that up in a little bit. Oh boy, is this going to be an easy one? But the last of the Patriots game this Sunday, sure, go check it out. But again, Game Time, terrific place to get it, all in pricing, so you know exactly what you're paying. No hidden fees. Terrific panoramic views from the seats, so you know what you're gonna be looking at when you get there. Low price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, so you know you're gonna get the best price out there. Ticket coverage, you're covered. Don't worry about it. Game Time's got you there. So all you have to do, you can see it on the screen. Use that code CLNS. Download the app. Code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Did you pull it up?
Yeah, $41. You can get into the building to Gillette for $41.
I bet you can. Damn. Oh my God. Can you really?
Yeah.
Not surprising.
Wow.
It's not surprising. It's not surprising. I'm going to look at it right now. I'll put it on the screen.
I think
I'll put it up
we
here.
are all ready for the off season on Monday.
Let's look at it. That's pretty good, right?
That's pretty damn.
It's not just $40.
When's the last time you could get in there for that, John?
Look where you are, like 130, like
that's what I'm saying.
Friggin' right down the middle. Oh my God,
dude.
When's the last time you could get in there for that much, John?
There's there's a spot $104. That's like, what is
back
that?
when it was Sullivan Stadium, Schaefer Stadium.
Holy cow.
Anyway, check it out. Game Time, as we said, download the app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms, of course, do apply. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about the game, about that yesterday. And I might fold into Nick's question about ratings, which again, but really the bigger issue was from the broadcast crew. Van Gundy, who was calling the game?
Van Gundy and was it Harlan?
Maybe, yeah. They weren't doing a bad job, but they were legitimately apologetic for what was happening and what was about to happen.
It?
Huh? They were like,
oh,
here come the threes, kind of like almost telling the viewers, like, we know this is going to be bad for you, but these teams shoot a lot of threes. And then when they're like, what do you know? Another three. Almost kind of like, we've got to kind of make light of this because it's so obviously bad and ridiculous. That was the tone of it. And they're missing, as you said, one of the great games of the year. Extremely fun, extremely entertaining. The Celtics played an all-time great second quarter, not really talking about it, not spending time on Keita's impact, not all of these things. And then you get to the halftime, and it's this great game between two premium marquee opponents, and you get to the desk, and they're just like shaking their heads like they had already decided they were going to go in on this game because these teams like to shoot threes. Barkley can't be a good player because now he shoots too many threes, and blah, blah, blah. And then Kenny goes to the blackboard. He draws up three plays that didn't make sense at all.
It was very bizarre.
They scored on those plays.
Why this three was a bad three. And they were saying the opposite, which is like, you're supposed to threaten threes to open up the paint. Yeah, kind of. But like that creates space for sure. But if people are going to collapse on you, you're going to kick it out to an open three, especially when you've got people everywhere who can shoot them and punish teams. And the analysis was wrong. And I finally concluded this. The reason the old heads are doing this and acting this way and constantly talking about it is I actually don't think they know what they're looking at. I think the NBA has evolved to a point that they're not fully even comprehending it. It's not just back in my day boomer bullshit. I don't even know if they know what they're watching. They're not doing a good job. Yeah.
When they're saying Hauser should drive past Gobert in the corner instead of pulling up over him, that's
the
shocking.
dumbest thing I've ever heard.
The only thing I want to see Sam
space.
The only thing I want to see
God.
Sam to do is drive to the practice facility and drive to the arena. That's about it for driving for Sam Hauser. Okay, any other driving relative to
Hauser missed a driving opportunity. Oh my God.
No, Sam understands. I go back to something that Doc Rivers said earlier this year, pregame before playing the Celtics, about the challenge that they present to every team they play, and that is they can literally play an entire game and have shooters at every position. Literally have guys that can stretch the floor at every position. And that puts a tremendous amount of stress on you defensively, because you really can't come up with a blueprint to defend that, because they have the ability to shoot from outside, beat you off the dribble, finish around the rim. And if you've got that type of versatility on your roster, you exploit that and try to maximize the point value that you can generate with that. And the way you do that is you shoot threes. Now, do they shoot more than they probably should? There's some nights they do, but often I'm finding that's the best shot relative to what the defense is doing against them. And if that's the case, they're doing exactly what they're supposed to.
Yeah, it's weird. And especially when like the empirical evidence is damning for the I hate threes crowd. There's more threes and more points in the paint in the modern NBA. The thing that's missing is long twos, which are not inherently more entertaining than threes. It's stupid. Plus also the natural correction that's going to happen. And that's why this dovetails off of the Edwards conversation, off of the Edwards comments. And that conversation is eventually teams will realize. Right now what's happening is stubborn old school institutional thinking in terms of defense and the way it's always been played, which is to help, right? Even the Celtics, who played a really good game last night, overhelped way too many times. Tatum did it on Randall. Live with it. If Randall cooks Hauser, fine. Hauser will stay in front of him. Randall will get his. I'd much rather him shooting contested twos over Sam Hauser than kicking to open shooters in the corner. It's not even close. Eventually, defenses will recognize that your instinct is always, oh shit, here comes that guy. I got to slide over and clog up the lane, stop his progress. Stop doing that. Live with it. Live with guys on an island. You know, you're going to help over if a guy's clearly got his man beat, and then you're going to have numbers. That's natural, but don't help when a guy isn't dead beat. Just let him play the guy straight up and live with that shot versus the open three. Eventually, the defense is going to understand the math like the offense finally has, which is 3 is more than 2. They'll understand it in reverse. The 2 is less than 3. So I'm going to live with this. They just haven't done it yet. It's going to tip back. And when it does, you'll have more Anthony Edwards start performances and all of that. It just hasn't happened yet. But it's just natural. It's an exploitation. I keep talking about it like relative to like football. Like, if your star receiver is doubled all the time, are you not just going to, or if they're playing, with safeties deep over the top and you can't take shots downfield, you'll dink and dunk them to death. If a team's going to go out there and play base dime coverage, you'll run the ball up their gut until they bring more guys to the line of scrimmage, and then you can open up and pass it. This is what defenses are allowing currently, and teams are exploiting it. So it's really not a big problem. It's just the defense hasn't caught up with the offense yet. That's my take on it.
So much. Yeah, you're still leaving guys open and all that. And that's what the Celtics had to do last night. And it was such a challenge. They barely squeaked by doing it. But I do think it accomplished what they want to do. And a lot of it is going to be like, Joe says it all the time, like, who do you want taking what shots? Who do you want to limit? Who do you want to live with going off? That sort of stuff. So there's a lot of nuance to it, John, that I don't think gets broken down. And, I think we talk about it all the time. Football coverage gets a level of nuance and breakdown and X's and O's conversation that basketball doesn't quite receive. Even though I think it's, definitely not quite as complicated, but there is a
You
lot
got
of complicated stuff, especially on defense.
Offenses are playing the board right now. Like they recognize the math and what it's going to work. Defense is time for them to adjust. It's that basic, but it's amazing the analysis of it last night. Just the shaking of their heads and like you're missing a good game, guys. Like they're taking threes, they're making threes, they're doing a lot of other good things there. There was some high level stuff happening in the game, and they just ignored all of it with the pre-3 agenda. It was sad, and I get it. It's this homogenous kind of
That's where they're right.
I agree. Variance is more entertaining than seeing the same thing over and over and over again. There's no question about it. So there's no solution behind other than like rule changes are stupid. The solution is if you don't want to get beat by the 3, prevent threes. It's that simple. And when that happens, you'll see a little bit more of the variance come back in the game here, and that's fine. But honestly, the game's better with more people who can put the ball in the basket than it is big, steaky dudes just camping out in the middle, clogging things up, who can't do a friggin' thing and lack the skill of, modern NBA players. The skill is what makes it great, because now you've got 7, 8, 9 guys that can do stuff. Back then you had 3, like 4, maybe on your team, and then no one else could beat you offensively. So except for the super teams for sure. But there's so much talent right now. It's unbelievable. And that's what we're dealing with. But the analysis was brutal. One thing I wanted to talk about, we talked about it a little bit, was before we get to Jimmy Butler and close the show, the difference between the Celtics when Ime took them to the finals, the difference between them last year. Bobby, you said that Ime talked about it. I'm not sure the quality of the sound here, but I am going to play it. Here's Ime Udoka talking about how he thinks this Celtics team has evolved. And again, the Celtics beating the Houston Rockets handily, and Ime Udoka 109-86 on a back-to-back tonight. Here was Ime prior to the game.
Happy for him for sure, and not surprised. It's coming regardless. And so, taking the steps that they had before I got there, and then the year I was there, obviously falling short that year. I know it fueled everybody to get back, and was motivated to get it done when they got there. So extremely excited for them, and not surprised that the jump they took.
To the Warriors in the finals, you said IQ was the reason why. How have you seen that team develop since then, and just the way they understand the game, the way they're able to diagnose things and everything like that?
Yeah, I think that, like I'm saying, the growth isn't just the physical, and it's the experience that they've gone through, had to go through. But yeah, IQ and experience, one and the same, and just being there. And at times that hurt us, obviously, in that series. With some of the guys that have been there for Golden State, you can see that. But once you kind of got over that hurdle of being there the first time, you knew it was coming. So the physical, obviously, they have all the tools there, and they've taken on a leadership role. So the IQ and experience is really what kind of propelled them over to take the next step.
Smarter.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, smarter, yes, but I think the biggest thing is just the experience, which is part of that being smarter, having basketball IQ. There's a certain been there, done that.
It's what
dynamic.
Tess put in the chat.
Yeah.
Tess put that in the chat earlier. Right outside of Golden State, there's no one there's more battle scars and more playoff experience than these guys right now. They are young, but also the most experienced team. It's a deadly combination.
Yeah, they fall into that category of being what you'd call young veterans. That by all accounts, they're still relatively young, but because of their experience, they are a little bit more wiser beyond their years, having gone through that. As much as people want to praise the Celtics for winning a championship, they went through some shit to get that title. The years with LeBron losing to Golden State. That second round series against Milwaukee where they won the first game and then Kyrie went MIA for the rest of the series. Those type of wounds, rather than let those wounds fester and just, take a step back, they use those wounds to motivate them to be better, to be smarter. And it manifests itself last season with them winning Banner 18.
Yeah, and they almost had a fresh start under Ime too that year. Jalen as a playmaker, Jason trying to figure out what that dynamic was like at that time because it's the first year without Kemba. And the team transformed pretty drastically midseason that year too. So that year is still kind of crazy to look back on just how much better they got, how quickly they formed an identity. I think, Joe's talked a little bit too about how that identity's persisted through 3 coaches now. Like there's still a lot of elements of Ime's defense that's here. And, some of that stuff goes back to the things Brad did, defensively back then,
Right.
limiting threes and all that. So I always, I think you're always going to look back at Ime and the year he had here and owe a lot of gratitude to that. Joe does it. The players do it. Tatum calls him his favorite coach ever. It sucks how it ended. It really does. But, it might have been for the best. Joe, I think, has shown himself to be so, I think, attentive to the biggest issue, right, John? They were so dysfunctional, even that year offensively. And even that first year of Joe, where you still had Marcus's shooting limitations and Grant having a down year and Rob being in and out and trying to figure out if you want to play smaller or bigger, he still found ways scrambling that year and trying to recreate their identity on that end to solve a lot of their problems. And that's, I think, what got this team over the hump, like figuring out how they could be less dysfunctional offensively, the massive droughts, all of that, turnovers, all the way down the line.
Well, there's certain coaches that have the ability to, if they're basically the starter coach for a championship run, but they're not going to necessarily be there to get you over the hump. We saw that with Golden State and Mark Jackson. He laid the foundation that Steve Kerr was able to take to that next level and build that dynasty into what it was. And Ime, in many ways, is kind of like, the Mark Jackson of the Boston Celtics, the guy that really helped kind of get the ball rolling towards this team becoming a championship caliber team. And there's certainly, you listen to the players and hear what they have to say about Ime before, during, and after his departure. There's a lot of respect for what he was able to bring in that 1 year with the Celtics in terms of what he did as a coach. But again, would they have won a title if Ime were still the coach? I don't think so.
I was just going to ask that. How do you feel about that, John?
I was zoning out. I don't want to fax my dog you, but I was trying to see if Noah was ready to come on the stage. So
would
give
they
me
have
that
won
last part
under
again.
Ime?
So that's I was going to ask that of you guys. I don't never know. You need a sliding doors thing. I would say I think Ime and Joe both could have expiration dates, because like they're like Ime, the tough love stuff wears on some teams after a while, and like coaches like that sometimes, but it was still early in the process and they grew a lot with him in year 1. I have to think with that level of talent, for given a couple more years, and if they made all of the same moves and brought in the same guys, yes, they would, because that championship team could also play defense, and I think Ime would have been pretty happy with how they played defense. But I don't know if it unlocks the offense. I don't know. And Joe might have been able to do the things that Joe did to unlock them offensively, or to really drill in his, philosophy with the threes and how they needed to play. So it's possible, but I don't really know. Let's bring in Noah.
Threes is the big one. Would they have shot this many threes under him? Because they didn't that year.
I don't think they would have. And that's why I don't think they would have won a title under him, because I don't think he would have been willing to make, frankly, some of the concessions defensively that you need to make in order to be a top tier 3-point shooting team the way they have become. Hey, Noah, what's up?
These are questions that only are relevant if you didn't win a championship, and you did, so it doesn't really matter at this point. Noah is out of the locker room. She is in Houston. She's going to be joined on the road by Bobby Manning, who's headed out for the OKC. And what's the last one?
Denver.
That'll be Denver.
OKC and Denver games. So we have 2 more really good ones on this trip. But Noah, back to back, this game could have been one where they laid down, and they didn't. Your kind of general big takeaways off of tonight's win.
Yeah, this was a great win. Yeah, second night of a back-to-back, and I thought the defense was great. The defensive effort was great.
Was it?
But I also would say that's just John trolling me. But yeah, a joke made to an audience of 1. Sorry. And then I also thought that their shot making was enough to be able to withstand Houston's early quarter, first quarter surge, because they ended up making 49% of the 3-pointers. So as much as we can look on the defensive end, and I do think there are some intangible things, some little things, some awesome second half possessions where they were forcing shot clock violations. I think ultimately, like, the big difference here is that they're making shots. Guys like Derek White are, he's looking really confident. I asked him about it post game. He said that he's always been confident. It didn't waver. But certainly to me, it looks like he's playing more confident. And I think that just him having the performance that he did, Drew and Payton kind of setting the tone. Joe Mazzulla talked post game about how much of a difference it is for this team when Drew asserts himself offensively. And I saw some crazy stat the other day. I think when he scores 14 or more points, they're 45-2 the Celtics throughout his career as Celtics. So him being aggressive offensively really helps this team. So off the bat, that was great. And I don't know that Houston had enough. They were obviously down a few guys, but the second half defense was just stifling, and it was really fun to watch just from a basketball fan standpoint.
Yeah, and we said this at the top of the show because Holiday to me was the most interesting individual performance to talk about tonight, because Tatum is Tatum, and he continues to do Tatum things. And Derek White, we've seen him have games like this. Not that it makes it any less impressive, but this was the whole Derek White package, and I think he's the most impactful player on the floor tonight. But the Drew Holiday thing, how many times now are we going to bury this guy for a stretch of play where people are like, that's it, he's washed, this contract's horrible. And I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't want to do it with this guy because he's still the same guy. I mean, and yeah, maybe the shoulder was an issue and it was affecting his shooting or was affecting a couple of things, but he looked like the same guy tonight. And that's, I think, the important thing is, how can this team lose? A couple ways. I don't think it's going to be complacency. Someone just fall down all the stairs.
I don't know what happened.
I don't think it's going to be complacency or lack of effort that's going to cost them the finals. I think it's going to be either Porzingis is a zero on the year, or hurt and never contributes, and they're not able to sustain that this year, or regression of players like Horford and Holiday as they kind of continue to inch up in age. And if you saw significant regression in those and you lost KP, then yeah, you'd be reduced. And you'd have the same players, but they wouldn't be playing the same. And this is what we saw in the later stages of the 2008 team, which is they still had their glimpses and their moments. And when they limped their way to the finals there against the Lakers that second time, it was, can we eke this out? But it wasn't the same. They weren't the same guys. That's the only way I think it goes here. And I think it is heartening to see that Drew Holiday is not washed, as many people sometimes like to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could apply that to a lot of guys. Like, how many times have we heard about Al Horford? How bad is this? What's happening here? Al Horford.
I'm entertained by it. I'm kind of curious.
I don't see what it is. It's like behind me, so I don't know.
I'm having flashes of Fred VanVleet just jacking up shots that are just hitting everything but the rim. Anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think we should, in general, guys like Drew, guys like Al, guys like Cam, to give them a little bit of time before there's going to be a certain expectation that they're going to struggle with stretches. Like, that's just inevitable. It's part of their career. It's part of their seasons. But again, one thing that was notable to me, I thought Porzingis looked a little rough at the beginning and was kind of getting exploited by Sengun, and obviously, them putting Luke in was huge. Joe was the first thing that Joe said post game before he even had a chance to be asked about Luke. He just brought up Luke on his own accord and just how impactful he was. So I was happy to share that. But he said that it's less that Porzingis is struggling from a health standpoint. I asked him specifically, is the team having to adjust to him being back? He thinks other teams are adjusting to Porzingis differently this season than last season. So that's something to watch. I don't know. I thought that last year from the jump, teams were kind of unprepared. And I feel like this year, I'm going to have to find a new spot. Let me see what I can do.
I think in this game, they had him out further.
Be safe, Noah. Be safe. I'm fearful for Noah, man. All that banging around.
I think it's cleaning crew, and they're just doing their job. And
they're
just
loud though.
They're right in that spot, and it happens.
I think it's interesting because you say, John, you don't worry about Holiday. He's gonna get it together. You don't worry about Horford. You've seen him get it together a bunch of different times. You do look at Porzingis and say, not only is he going to be able to put it all together, but is he out there consistently enough to even have a chance to do it? And so this is game one. He gets through it, got better by the end of it. Still not quite himself from a year ago, And so does he get through Sunday? Does he get through Tuesday after that? Obviously, he's resting the back-to-backs, and I think that's why he missed yesterday. But is there enough momentum for him to become the guy we watched last year? And I think that is, not a major question, but an important one, because I think they need him more this year. Like Noah mentioned, the defense in the second half, that helps. His presence defensively feels super important for them, at least having a high floor defensively, and they can figure out other ways to do it without him. But it's not easy. And then when you have some holiday limitations, if they're there at all, like every extra guy that you're going to lose this year, you're going to feel a little bit more than last year, I think.
You're managing the health
just
of
because
more
so many guys have
players.
been in and out, Sherrod.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. You're managing the health of more guys now than you've done before. Last year it was about the veterans, the OGs, to make sure that they were good to go when the playoffs roll. But now you've got to look at guys like Jaylen Brown and his health issues. You got to look at Sam Hauser, who's had some ailments as well. And so if you're the Celtics, there's a little bit more of juggling that you've got going on now. And Porzingis is part of that juggling act. How much of an impact is he going to make when he's healthy, and can he be someone that you can lean on for the rest of the season and into the playoffs? Because John, the point that John made earlier about how Porzingis has had kind of really typical basketball type bumps and bruises, which is great from the standpoint it's not season ending or long term type injuries.
He's not Kemba. Or
right.
Rob,
right.
like where it's like it flared up again,
right.
These are
he's going to be gone for a week. He's going to be gone for 3 weeks now.
Yeah,
right.
That's a good part about all the injuries this year is they all seem pretty cut and dry, except the Hauser thing, which, just continues to be weird.
No, any update on Hauser?
No update on Hauser. I will say he's still doing that whole ice, the heating pad. He's calling for it. He has stuff even before the game, before he even checks in for the first time when he's not starting or in the third quarter. So I'm just seeing if he doesn't look comfortable on the bench. He's just it's a full-time job. It feels like he's prepared, but he has not.
No, you're coming in a little soft. Check the mic. Make sure you're hooked up there after the move, or that it's where it needs to be. So yeah, the Hauser thing is a little bit troublesome, because. I mean,
it just comes and goes. Like you get those 3 games where he looks like
stuff.
himself again. Yeah, and then this.
Yeah.
You're concerned about the timing of it. I mean, you can manage and work around it now, but if you're in a playoff series against a team that's playing pretty damn good defense and you need someone to help space the floor and he's not available, that could be a problem. That could be a big problem. So,
no other takeaways from tonight?
I mean, I think the reality is we're seeing a really nice turnaround here. Like after a very tough December, these are 2 high quality wins, and you could feel it. As much as nobody wanted to sound the alarm bell, there was a lot of talk tonight from everybody. And Luke spoke, and Derek spoke, and Porzingis and Tatum, and everybody was like, we wanted to be better. We wanted to turn it around. We talked. We wanted to. Joe said a couple of times. I feel like he almost stopped himself, but he said, we got our identity or the defense that people are used to. So I do think there's an addition.
How did they get that?
By making threes. By making threes, John. So in any case, I think that they're looking a lot more like the team that we're used to. And again, this wasn't in full strength. I mean, Porzingis, I think, is still a shell of himself, like Bobby said, and Jalen out. Jalen did a whole pregame workout with Tony Dobbins, the assistant coach that he works closely with, and he was taking contact and getting up shots and everything. So I think he's probably really close to playing. I would not be surprised if he's good to go by Sunday.
They're gonna need him Sunday.
I think you got the full package on Sunday. So that's so let's talk about that, because I think that's a lot of fun. This is what you want to see right now, and you really want to see both teams come in fully loaded and go and just play on Sunday. And I really do hope Jalen plays. And with the benefit of the day off in between, you're going to likely have Horford and Porzingis playing. Let's effing go, right? This is fun. This is the real one, right? This is the real test here. The first 2 wins were nice, but Minnesota's had their problems, and Houston was limited tonight. They were both excellent wins. I thought last night was the best win of the year. Also with the Celtics being shorthanded. And then they drilled Houston. Huh?
No. I'll say my point later.
Yeah. So not to discount these, but this is the one you've got with 20 circles around here, because it's not ridiculous to say, it's not like being anti-Boston or anything to say Oklahoma is playing the best basketball in the league right now. Maybe Cleveland for sure is there too, but Oklahoma City looks almost flawless right now, and they're still not doing it with a full roster. And I think that's the one right now. I mean, I think that these are your two title favorites. So I'm really, really, really curious how this game plays out. But go ahead, Noah.
No, I was just gonna say I saw today that last night was actually their worst defensive rating of the whole season, versus Minnesota. So I think we've relitigated this
Expected field goal percentage. Did Joe tell us that? Because I'm guessing it was considerably higher than what
their own expected field goal percentage.
No, Minnesota's.
I don't know. He didn't.
I'm guessing the expected was a good bit lower than what they actually shot. But we only use those stats when they help our case. But anyway, let's proceed.
I'm just saying. One Anthony Edwards layup away, and Derek doesn't break in that three. And we're talking about a loss.
I more mean
no, but I like the
near perfect game because you can't to be able to beat a team when they shoot 50+% from three, the way they did and make 21 threes, you had to do almost everything right in order for that to happen, including taking care of the basketball, which they did with only the 5 turnovers, which was huge. So that was on a razor's edge. They should not, statistically, they should not have won that game. That's why I thought it was so impressive, being shorthanded and being able to overcome an insanely hot shooting team. That was my main point there. But I really do the OKC thing. Remember the last time they played out there? It was a great game. OKC wins. Tatum decided to check, SGA late in that game and kind of allowed the Celtics to crawl back into it. And he did it with Edwards the other day too. I'm kind of curious the defensive assignments here and how they end up playing this.
They'll switch it up like they did against Minnesota.
They will, of course.
Now, Tatum's got to be better than SGA to win that game, I think, because Thunder just have it rolling everywhere else at such a higher level right now, I think. And they're just a lot. And it's not just that they're as good as you, which I think they are. They play that style, John, that's hurt the Celtics so much. The speed, the spacing, getting threes athletic up, and then there's physicality inside too. So they don't have Chet right now, so it's not quite a finals preview of what you could potentially see at full strength for both sides, and the Celtics have their bumps and bruises too right now. But this is going to tell us a lot, just giving us an early taste of what this matchup looks like. And it's different in OKC than Boston. I think we've seen that over the last couple of years. This is a really tough place to play. The early start, I don't love for the Celtics too, coming off 2 games, 3 days prior. So I think this one does lean in Oklahoma City's direction a little bit, but Tatum has the chance to go out there and guard SGA, shut him down.
You guys want to see Noah Cam? This is Noah Cam right now. What's up, Noah?
On the road again.
We're moving. We'll get there. We'll get you there. She's back.
Constant relocation.
I like that. It's very cinema verite, sort of just following along. Shoot whatever happens. We'll give you a minute to pull it together and get back on there.
I think that's the only way they can win Sunday, John, is if Tatum goes out there and exceeds Gilgeous-Alexander's level. Not to boil it down to that, but I think the Celtics are going to need that in this situation.
Yeah.
I think obviously it'll help for him, but to me, Jaylen Brown's return, I think, is going to be the X factor because it'll be
hard to win without Brown.
Yeah, I think Jaylen is going to be that guy that's going to put them over the top in this game because when you look at Tatum and you look at Shea, you could easily see those guys negating one another. But is there someone that can, if Jaylen Brown is playing at his best, is there anyone on that OKC team that can basically equal him? And I don't think so. They've got some. Jalen Williams is a good player, but Jaylen Brown is better. And if Jaylen Brown is playing at the level that Jaylen Brown typically plays in these type of games, the Celtics are going to win this thing.
I think Brown's coming through the gate, friggin' roaring if he's healthy. I think it's going to be a big Jaylen Brown game.
Yeah. And he's checked those guys at different points too, probably more than Tatum. And you'd probably like to put Tatum on Hartenstein a little bit. So that gives you some flexibility there too. The Thunder, though, I mean, there's a forcefulness to them that is going to knock you back on your heels a little bit if you're Boston. And how do you recover from that? I think that's going to tell us a lot. And they haven't got off to many good starts this year. No, we've been talking about that all year long. These brutal opening 4 or 5 minutes for Boston. Now, Pritchard, does that give you a second unit edge there? Thunder have some good shooting and contributors off their bench too. This just feels like the first time in 2 years, John, where you're actually playing an opponent that's on your level. And I think that's exactly what the Thunder are. They won as many games as you in 2024 collectively through the calendar. They're probably playing just a little bit better than you to start this season. Their defense is definitely better than yours. Your offense is better. But yeah, this is it right here. This is the matchup.
It's fun. And another MVP showdown here with the Tatum SGA stuff. Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, just the fact that Tatum could be on SGA or Hardenstein, not to throw Tatum propaganda here, but that's pretty impressive. Like, I don't want to skip over how impressive it is as a defender to be able to take on both of those matchups at points. And why are you grimacing, Bobby?
This could be the game where everyone realizes that, right? He's on SGA.
I thought you were disagreeing with me. I was like, I feel like this is not a hot take.
No, but it's on NBA TV, so no one's gonna see it on football. Tatum's gonna have this performance that shows why he's MVP and does all these different things, and no one's gonna see it.
Yeah, and honestly, I thought today Tatum had some really great defensive moments where, like, I went back because I'm always filming on my phone, and I went back a couple of times, and I was like, how did they not? How did Houston not get anything here? Because a couple of times they almost had an advantage at one point, and Tatum made up for a lot of mistakes in this game. So I think, it's easy to call him out when he looks a little bit unfocused or if he gets a backdoor cut because those plays are so loud. But he has a lot of nights like tonight where he's not guarding full court. He's not the guy that's going to get the highlight reel defensively, but he's doing a lot of little things. And it's almost worth watching him for a couple minutes sometimes in these kinds of games, just watching him on the defensive end because he's everywhere. I mean, he's playing help. He's switching on to the ball handler, switching on to the shooter. So, and when he is like that, this team is really, really hard to score against. And I think he can set that tone. And it's not always like that, but tonight I thought he had a very special defensive performance that could very easily go unnoticed because it's not going to show up in any loud way.
Speaking of the Thunder, here's Kristaps Porzingis after the game, courtesy of Noah, talking about facing the Thunder.
It's phenomenal player. It's going to be a big challenge. These were like super typical.
Phenomenal.
Default answer. But honestly, it's it presents obviously some challenges and we want to try to limit him at the rim as much as we can and try to make it as as grinding as possible for him to try to wear him down. But big challenge. They have great guys that can support him also, so we just can't focus on him alone and we'll see. It will be a fun matchup for sure.
Now, Bobby talked over the punchline a little bit. What did he say?
It wasn't much of a punchline. It was just that he said, super phenomenal player. It's going to be a tough challenge. And then he caught himself saying like the boring lines that they say. And he said, these are really typical answers. Then I thought he was going to say something interesting, but he didn't seem to correct himself.
Stuck with the cliches. It
was just funny because Derek had just been in there and Derek had done 5 minutes of just those answers. So then Porzingis caught himself. But I will say, and rewatching that, though, as a media, we laughed a little too hard at that one.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's the classic. He smiled at me, sort of like it's hard not to do it when you're in the scrum and you're like, It happens all the time. You're not the first. You're not the first throng to do it. I think Belichick is probably the worst. The amount of laughs he used to get for saying the same friggin' "you face, my face" jokes that he would make over and over again. It's there.
It's tough to make me laugh in those scrums. You're gonna have to.
Yeah, because you're always.
That's so true. Bobby will not. He's not an easy laugh in the scrums.
Because Joe probably had said something mean to him minutes earlier, and he's still aggrieved by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is mean Joe.
Can't wait to
Mean
go
Joe
catch up with
Mazzulla.
him in OKC.
Last thing we're going to talk about briefly is the Jimmy Butler saga. What's going on here? And it took a turn today as the Heat suspended Jimmy Butler for 7 games and now said they're listening to trade offers 8 days after saying Jimmy Butler's not going anywhere. And the statement that they put out reads here, we've suspended Jimmy Butler for 7 games for multiple instances of conduct detrimental. So they've been sitting on their hands with it, just kind of dealing with it, hoping that it would go away or correct itself. It did not. Several instances over the course of the season, and particularly the last several weeks through his actions and statements, he has shown he no longer wants to be part of this team. Jimmy Butler and his representatives have indicated that they wish to be traded. This is what Jimmy Butler had to say the day before, which I think was the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back.
Fix it. What do you want to see happen to fix it?
What do I want to see happen? I want to see me get my joy back from playing basketball. And wherever that may be, we'll find out here pretty soon. But I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court. But I want to be back to somewhat dominant. I want to hoop, and I want to help this team win. Right now, I'm not doing that.
Can you get your joy back here on the court?
Probably not.
Damn.
And that was that. The Jimmy Butler situation. So look, you got a staring contest now between Pat Riley, who everyone's making out the Godfather. You don't mess with Pat Riley. But I mean, leverage is not really on his side right now, but he could also just say, F it. I'll sit on you all year long. Go find your money out in the offseason if you can. Chances are someone's going to have to sign and trade anyway. I'll deal with it then, or
that's been some of the reporting from the Miami side. Yeah.
And that wouldn't be stunning Butler doesn't really have much leverage either, because wherever he goes, he's going to have the same problem with that team too, because no one's going to want to max him at this point. Yep. He's 36. So I don't see a winner here. I just see 2 losers. However, assuming he does get traded, it could tip things if you still think Jimmy Butler and a rejuvenated something to prove Jimmy Butler has something to prove. And if he can be had on the cheap, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Now, who's the team that you least want to see Jimmy Butler end up with?
Ooh,
it's the Warriors. They're dead in the water right now.
Who cares? That doesn't affect. It's just from a Celtics perspective. Who do you not want to see? Like, who might he tip them? Like, who that's been discussed right now that might be, something that could knock a team into the Celtics stratosphere, slightly ahead of them, perhaps, if they were to add Butler on the cheap.
Philly. I don't want to see him in Philly.
I mean, and that seems to be a spot there. Does that change their outlook?
It makes, if you have to see them in the playoffs, it makes it increasingly more difficult to get past them.
Bucks.
Bucks are interesting. Yeah. A lot of these teams just have such high restrictions. It's tough to imagine it. Especially in the East. So that's why I say the Warriors. I think there's a path there. I think it makes sense for them. I think it does have enough of a potential to revive them. And we were talking about them as a potential finals team earlier in the year. And, whether you're stringing together Kuminga and Schroeder and some of the other contracts you have there, it's feasible. Like, I don't know why they're not exploring it more heavily. And Houston. Like, you look at them tonight, and what do you say, John? It's like, oh, that's nice. You guys, you're trying hard. You got a bright future, blah, 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 blah. But, he goes there, and you slot him into that Van Fleet spot. And I've said this a million times, and they just don't seem interested in it. I don't really know why. But all of a sudden, you start to take them a little more seriously, especially if Butler can recapture that old productivity, availability, whatever. And that's obviously the key to whatever situation he ends up here. But those are the 2 to me, realistically. Like, they're on the cusp. And does Butler elevate you to final status?
I just want him to go out west. Anywhere in the East, I think he can make it. I mean, I still believe in him, what he's capable of. I haven't seen him have the last time we saw him in a playoff series was the Eastern Conference Finals, right? So I still believe in him. I still think that he can, and especially if he's pissed off, especially if he feels slighted and disrespected. So I just want him to go out west. And I will say, when we were last talking about this, was maybe a month ago, the Warriors to me seem like a nightmare scenario for Boston. They've fallen off so hard since then that I don't see a world where they're in the finals now, and they've exposed so many flaws in that roster. I just don't think it's feasible. But I have to look at the numbers. But yeah, the same contending teams in the East. So, the top 3-4 seeds are the ones you don't want to see them at. And Philadelphia, I would say it would change my mind a little bit about them. If there's a way to keep Maxey, Embiid, Paul George, and him on one team, you got to respect that roster, even if the other pieces are a little bit more uncertain.
If you have the part with Paul George,
would your Pistons go do this, Sherrod?
Yes.
Accelerate that timeline a little bit?
They would. They would. And
they might be that mystery team.
Yeah. And I mean, they add Jimmy Butler and still able to keep their core, which includes Cade, obviously. They become a playoff team. They become a team that you're probably not going to have a lot of fun playing in the first round because of all the points that we've been brought up, that Jimmy's going to play with an edge. He's going to have an attitude. And we've seen the Celtics have seen up close and personal.
One too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
Orlando's
see
just got to get
them.
healthy.
Like, I'm really trying to think of who could actually get a deal done. Like, I don't think the Bucks can. I don't think the Sixers can. Brooklyn could, but they're not there yet. Detroit's close.
Most of the teams that have space are not relevant to the playoff picture.
Right.
And that's what makes it tough. Like, just looking at it, exploring it, the only teams I really see having a path here, like Denver, there's a Denver deal if they like Porter.
Oh, gosh.
All of a sudden, is it Butler and Jokic? That's intriguing.
Yeah.
For a team that's having a difficult time generating threes and shooting threes, I think you've got some offensive, concerns there with Denver there too. I mean, I like him. I like Butler. I've always been a big Butler guy. I agree with Noah. I think he has a lot to offer someone when he chooses to. At this point, like we said, there are some athletes that have expiration dates. It's not a matter of if, but when, that it's going to go sour. And that's what's happened with Butler here, but I don't think he's cooked. I think people are too quick to say something like that just because looking at the age and looking at how he's performed this year. And I think where he does go, he's shown that he's an ultimate. What were we talking about? What was it? What was the Jimmy Butler conversation when they beat the Celtics? Jimmy Butler does everything necessary to make all of his teammates better. It's the only reason he plays basketball is to make people better. It's like almost the anti-ant, kind of quote. But like that's what he was about is, finding ways to get people involved, being the ultimate team guy, doing all of those things, and then just having kind of that killer instinct too to like make the big shot when it really mattered and being that guy and not shying away from it and all of that. I don't think that player's gone. So I do think that if he goes somewhere, it could be a game changer. I'm really interested to see, but also I like chaos and I like stories and I like things that are interesting, and bring it on. Let him go to one of these teams. It makes it more fun. It makes it more interesting. And I think it'd be Philly. I think it'd be great. Like, I don't fear it. I think it'd be fun. I think it's part of the journey. So I kind of want to see him end up on an Eastern Conference team, and have things be a little bit more interesting.
You've said it, John. Though the Heat do have a heavy say in this because he is kind of stuck. So more than anything, I think they want to clear his salary out of there and not take money back. So that's gonna create a narrow set of teams they can end up with. So again, I'm watching the Warriors. I'm watching Houston, especially. Can Ime have his way?
Tobias Harris over me.
And it does sound like it's imminent.
If
it's imminent?
Ime has a strong voice, Noah, in that organization, just in general. I think this is something he pushes for hard. And I don't know if the Rockets, there's going to be a lot of fists clashing in that room if they have to seriously talk this out. But that is a team, I think, that maybe he can elevate just enough that makes sense stylistically, what they need. I think he brings something that they need, and they have a salary in Fred VanVleet that can get it done, that comes off the books after this year. So I'm not predicting it, but I think it's the most likely.
All right. Well, we'll see. And, as Noah said, it feels like something's going to happen here.
That they are trying to trade him as soon as possible, and they have spoken with multiple teams today. That's 10 minutes ago.
Get this guy out of here. Yeah. We'll see where it goes. It'll be interesting. Interesting
Ben
to see.
Simmons? Just maybe hang out in Brooklyn for the rest of the year and figure out things from there. We've seen crazier stuff.
And that would be crazy. That would be crazy. I don't know why Brooklyn's Brooklyn.
They just picked up
We'll
D'Lo.
see. We'll see where it goes. And again, fun, interesting, and we'll definitely could shake things up a little bit in the East if this goes down in the coming days. And we'll obviously be here to talk about it. And hey, if he goes somewhere in the next day or so to a contender, maybe we'll jump on here and we'll do a little live breaking news style show, because that's what we do from time to time. In the meantime, as we said, we have you ridiculously covered in terms of the games that are coming up, and you don't give a crap and you don't want to watch the Patriots on Sunday anyway. You should watch the Patriots, watch the post-game show, watch the second half of the OKC game or all of it, and then come over here and watch the Celtics post-game show with Bobby and Noah, both in OKC, and maybe a surprise guest. We lost somebody out there. There's somebody out in OKC we're trying to connect with, Bobby. How's that going?
Going great. I'm confident we'll hear from him in some capacity.
Okay. We you might get Joe Sway. How's the Wi-Fi in OKC?
That
better?
We're gonna have to test.
It's got to be better than Brockton Wi-Fi. So I'm all for that OKC Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so Bobby and Noah, for the remainder of this trip, you can catch their coverage. Noah writing for Celtics blog, of course, and doing stuff for us over here at CLNS Media. And Bobby will be headed out there as well to join her.
Landed in Denver by the time we get there.
I'll be right back.
Speaking of Brockton Wi-Fi.
All right,
boy.
should we close it off? I think we're good to wrap.
Yeah, we were literally about to do that anyway.
The cleaning is following me wherever I go. So,
all right, check out Noah's final thoughts there in Houston. Plenty of quotes and recap coming on CelticsBlog.com from her out there. A. Sherrod Blakely, check out the Big Three podcast, and we'll be back on Sunday, 3:30 Eastern, Celtics Thunder, with a post-game show after. And I'm going to make my way down to Oklahoma City, which is quite a journey.
I'm back.
We're leaving.
You can take us home, Bobby. I have this weird thing with my lights where one has to be on one side and one on the other, or it blinks out earlier. I still got a ton of juice, but Bobby, you can take us out. Do you know where the button is?
There it is.
It's in here somewhere.
Press it. No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way. Let's fly Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke